You ready? Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 12th, 2016. We have a village board meeting, and then following that will be a committee of the whole meeting. It looks like it's about 7:03 p.m. I would ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jessica, would you please call the roll?
Present.
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 President, we do have a quorum, and Trustee Stecker is at work at Franklin Park this evening. Do we have any presentations?
We do not.
Do we have any public comments? To give as many visitors as possible an opportunity to speak in the interest of adjourning by 9 this evening. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in length unless further time is granted by the board on either active or general matters. So if someone wants to say something, now is the time. Step up to the microphone, introduce yourself to our clerk, and fire away. You're probably going to have to tip that microphone down a little bit.
I have just one question.
Shoot.
What is the benefits of not going out to bid? I see this in the newspaper all the time. What's the benefits?
Well, I think on the occasion here that we had a single provider, or we've gotten 3 quotes from different vendors. So generally, there's some time constraints. There's a representation made by staff that they've done their due diligence, and the board accepted that information.
But wouldn't it make more sense to go out for bid anyway? And even if they did their due diligence, you might find something more reasonable. I keep going back to that 5-year with waste management. Every year an increase. So I was just wondering, why do you continue to do it?
Well, I can tell you the board has already decided on the waste management contract that we will go to bid this next circle around the horn. At the time that it was presented, the board indicated that they didn't want to, and we didn't. So, it's up to the board of trustees. The question is posed, and there's a vote on it or a consensus in most of the cases that were out there. And I'm a fan of going to bid as well, but there has been representations that not going to bid, getting quotes for certain things that we've enjoyed over the years have been more prudent to do.
But the ordinances were put in place to safeguard. So it doesn't make it appear to be reasonable, feasible, or good government by doing it. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. Certainly the board has heard your commentary, and like I indicated a few moments ago, that contract will be going out to bid. That's one of the bigger ones that we have.
I did see that in the newspaper. I read that diligently.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, the ordinance also provides that the board may waive bidding by a supermajority vote. And I would point out that even the state statute with regard to public improvements for going out to bid also provides for the municipal officials to waive that bidding requirement. So the state legislature as well as the corporate authorities recognize that in certain circumstances bidding's not required. You don't have a board that waives bidding on everything that comes before it, even though the statute would allow that. So
Yeah, and again, I think on these we've done. I think we're better than them. At least I hope we are.
My name is Brian Jansen, Jansen, and this is just in regards to my wife and I received a call from Sonia at BNF last week in regards to our parkway being out of code of 1724.080. And looking it up, we saw it was landscaping, and it just says, I mean, Chapter 17 is pretty much from all 1953 of when everything was being subdivided, and it just says it has to be graded and seeded in an approved manner. We did look at the noxious weed and nuisance greenery control. Now, mind you, we haven't gotten a letter, but she did say we were going to be sent a letter that we have to redo our parkway and put all grass back down. But looking at the noxious weed and nuisance greenery control, it looks like we're completely compliant with the flowers and ornamental plants that we've planted down there with mulch all around it. And that was just done this spring, so it's going to take time to mature and grow. But being, you know, my wife has a horticulture background, and we're just going with the green movement and trying to attract bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, you know, cut down on the emissions with oil and gas, you know, the grass clippings in the street and stuff like that. We did take some photos of our front yard and some other yards around us in a few block radius that are around the parkways, and everything is neat and clean. So we're just wondering if this, like I said, we got the phone call last Tuesday, and the letter hasn't appeared yet. So we're just wondering what we need to do next in order to, because it's a lot of time and energy and money invested into the parkway to make it look nice. So.
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to recognize that the parkway is village property, and we certainly need to have some kind of control of what's on there. I'm not specific to what you're talking about. I don't know the address in that. But, you know, some people put things on the parkway that cause liability for us, and I know there's trees, fire hydrants, pretty much that's all that should be there. There's flowers around trees that are out there, and maybe some minimal brickwork around there. And like I said, I don't know your specific situation,
Right.
but it is village property. So, you know, we have to have some kind of control. Other than that, people would do what they want. They might put 10 trees on there.
Right.
Where, you know what, and how would you challenge it? So, I don't know, Melissa, if you have some commentary. I'm guessing you maybe should have asked before you did, and then you would have got some direction. But, you know, it is village property, and we need to control it in certain
I'm
degree.
asking which code are we violating? The one from 1953, it just says graded?
Well, which one is in place right now? I don't.
Well, then that's
Melissa?
That's
So-
what I'm asking, because the
Oh.
noxious weed one are in complete compliance. And nuisance greenery.
His,
Could we get somebody just to go out to take a look at it?
we did. Sonia was out there. We got a complaint. It's 2625 Somerset. Got the complaint a couple weeks ago. And she went out and there are just some small plantings on the parkway right now. I can't remember. It's all mulched, right? There's no just topsoil
It's mulch with,
Brian, you have those
with the
pictures?
plants.
yes.
Send them around.
So right now, our ordinance states, in the subdivision ordinance, it says that the parkway should be planted and seeded in an approved manner, but it doesn't identify what an approved manner is. Generally, it's that it's going to be landscaped with grass. So that's what the property owner do. His request is to allow him to keep the plantings that he's installed. In talking to BNF, my inspector had mentioned that in another community that she works in, they do like a license agreement with the property owners if some of them want to consider doing an alternative planting arrangement. But then it's something that gets recorded against the property, and they're required to maintain it for as long as they want to keep it. And if the property ever changes hands, then they need to either, the new owner either has to agree to that, or it has to be restored with grass.
The next set of photos are just within a quarter-mile radius of our house. Of all, I mean, and that's not even how President Cooley had mentioned all the concrete landscape bricks around the trees and timbers and custom rocks and all the mulch and the hostas and everything like that. So
And you said you just planted this stuff?
this spring, right? So that's going to take time to mature and look pretty. But you can see in the background of our photos, like I said, she's got a horticultural background. It's all going to look great moving forward with the green thing. So
The soil quality in the parkway is awful.
so we actually invested.
We actually had a soil consultant come out, and we put in probably $400,000
So what is, I must be missing it, what is the violation?
That it's not planted in an approved manner.
So are we going to be consistent with everybody else that's in these pictures?
Why don't we just hone in the ordinance?
I'm sorry?
Can't we just hone in the ordinance a little bit, organize the ordinance?
You
Update it?
can, or-
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
the one from 1953 is degraded and seeded, but the one from noxious weeds, which last year you guys changed the fines and stuff, signed on, it says, and nuisance greenery, you know, noxious weeds, we all know what weeds are, and nuisance greenery shall mean any weeds, grass, or plants exceeding 8 inches in height, other than trees, bushes, flowers, vegetable gardens, or ornamental plants. Then in the greenery control, it says the owner or occupant of any property abutting any public street, road, or way shall maintain the area between the edge of the pavement or curb and the property line commonly known as parkway in a neat and clean and orderly condition and free of any noxious weeds or nuisance greenery. And then that, we think we're being compliant.
Oh, what's the pleasure of the board? I mean, you took out all the grass that was there.
I've seen it. I walk
And-
by it. I don't live too far from you.
Okay.
I do some walking. And my wife and I actually commented on how nice it looked, but it's, I'm listening to what Melissa's saying about this ordinance, and if it's stating that an approved, in an approved manner, if we don't have an approved manner, I mean, how do we support this?
Well, one would think an approved manner is
Well, I mean,
looking
you
at
have
other things
probably
that are
three,
already on.
maybe more parts of the ordinance that you can look at. Robert, it sounds like you got,
One of my concerns when we talked about it is that I don't know if the owner knows that we've got street light cable that runs through there. It's about 18 inches deep, and when they were digging things up because they didn't get a permit, did they know that we have live wires not too deep? And if you would have gotten a permit, that's one of the things we would have done before you started to dig or move the earth around for your own safety and protection. Had you do a Julie locate so that we could tell you where all of our cables are. One, it wouldn't cause damage if we knew you were digging, and we could, obviously you didn't dig down deep enough to do any harm, but
No, we use the side cutter.
Had you done so,
Just a side cutter underneath.
had you done so, or a ditch witch, we would be presenting you with a bill for repair. Right?
Correct.
We also have a clean street policy, and we put salt down and plow. When we plow the snow into the parkway. So you make this investment, just you need to know that,
Yeah, we know it's.
that everything has to be salt tolerant. And if we got 4 feet of snow, that's where it goes.
I bought salt.
And don't call us to come repair it
No.
after it's been piled up.
No, I
And that's part of the issue.
you
we're
see
talking
this?
about in the parkway.
There's one on the corner of Fleet and Kensington. Same thing.
I just want to
Yeah.
make everybody aware.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, so there's plenty of them, so if
And
we're
then,
gonna,
like I said,
Sure.
my other photos were just within the 4 blocks.
yeah, I think if we're gonna, support an ordinance, you're gonna have to go around and see everybody that's done that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
we
them.
we don't do maintenance on any of that stuff. And when
Right.
we have a water main break, we dig it up, we don't repair.
No, we
In kind.
understand that.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
risks.
it's public,
I mean,
it's
we're right
village.
behind, I mean, we back up to the forest preserve with the utility lines, everything going through. We put up a nice fence, and she has more plants growing in the back, and if they have to come through with their machines, I mean, we know it's, risk and reward. We understand
Right,
that.
not everyone is aware
Right.
that happens. And I just wanted to make
Sure.
everyone aware. And we grant permits to other companies to put in infrastructure in that space. So that's the risk. As long as we're okay with that risk, we don't have a problem as long as we don't have.
No, I think the question here was, do we care about it? I mean, being there. I gave you my opinion.
I mean,
Well, there's more to it. I mean,
Right.
we took out all the grass that's village property and replaced it with something. And you've heard me orate before about people that have boulders and rocks and flag poles and little fences and all these kinds of things on public property.
Right, we talked about the
If we're
carriage
going to
walks.
allow all this, then guess what? There needs to be some kind of hold harmless agreement in place from anybody that has it, or it has to be removed. Because you hit a rock that's on a public parkway, you're gonna come after the village because we all seen it there, we all know it's there, and we've left it there. So you can't duck your ignorance factor of this.
I think, yeah,
You know, I
I'm
mean,
not,
it
I'm
looks-
not,
it
I'm
looks
not denying
nice.
the reason why we have these ordinances in place. I'm just saying that
I mean,
I
and
know
get
there's
the
more than
weeds
one
and tall grass
person
and-
doing it, and I know that, you know,
Right.
We'd have to be consistent.
we have to be consistent.
I mean, just because one has pretty flowers already matured and theirs isn't matured, that's,
You know, so either we
Figure something out.
draft some sort of an agreement that says, you know,
Yeah, if we have to sign something.
you're not gonna hold the village liable, you know.
So if we drafted a license agreement with them where they agreed to maintain it, and if the house should ever sell, that it would be removed if the new owner did not agree to maintain it, would that be something that the village board would want to
I've got no.
consider?
Well, I mean,
we gotta make everybody do that. though.
Right, yeah.
well, but
I think.
That's
I think
fine.
if you
This-
drop
this
it-
initially
Even if you
came
drop
in
it in
on a
somebody's
complaint.
mailbox and,
Well,
with it, you know,
but here's the
sign
thing.
this
Lot to-
agreement.
But
There's
here's
a
the
lot
thing.
to do.
Okay, just one quick comment on that. I don't think we just give everybody the free hand to do what they want still. I think, you know, I mean, in this case, it's different because it's fresh, but if we're gonna start this from the scratch, we still need to go out there and know what you're putting out there, because it could still be something that impedes, a visual
Vision.
sight,
Right.
you know, of the cross streets, you know, things like that. So we still need to go out there and look at it. If
We
it's just some
can-
short plannings,
We can include standards
yeah,
in there.
there's gotta be some
For the
standards.
height and how,
You have to
Call it
have standards,
opacity.
because right now, I can tell you where there's a flagpole.
Right.
And in the past years, as a patrolman driving around, there's people that put basketball poles to play basketball on the Village Parkway, which the village obviously had them removed. So I'm just cautioning you that if you're going to write an ordinance, there's more than 100 people
Yes.
that are out there with some form of decorative things on their parkway, which for the most part looks nice, and yours looks nice as
Well,
well.
that's where, I mean, that's where I was just.
And that, the question that is
Right.
posed to the village is it allowed? I mean, there's a lot of things that were written in 1956 and in 1960 that really need to be updated
And that's why.
to certainly what is today.
That's why we were more looking at the nuisance greenery and.
I mean, it would have been nice to have a conversation before today, you know,
Yeah.
with you, what are you doing, why you doing it, what's going on, what could we agree to? You know, maybe if you did 25% of the lawn and not 100%, there would have been a different feel to it. But you took over
We still have
50,
some
60
parkway on
feet
the
of
other
it.
side, but-
You wiped everything out,
But when you
which
walk-
was our grass, you know, at the same token.
Right, I get it, and walk, but, you know, I lived on, you know, both sides of Westchester, and you're walking your dogs and walking around, and you see it somewhere else.
But not to the extent that you have.
Yeah, I could go, I'll take more pictures throughout the village if you want.
I'm saying somebody took the whole parkway out. I've never seen the whole parkway out. I've seen sections and pieces and whatever, but you've taken it from the curb to the sidewalk, from one end to the other. I've never seen one
We still
like
do
that.
have parkway on the other side, too, of our
So-
driveway.
I agree, I think we hold harmless, I mean, especially like you said, when you said about stones, I mean, that's an issue.
That's a whole parkway.
Huh? Yeah,
That's a
it's in
whole
the
parkway.
parkway, yeah, and, I think some sort of agreement, I don't know about, I would be a little hesitant about having, if the property gets sold, you know, returning it to the state, only because, I mean, and this is from his examples, I mean, some of this stuff is curb appeal and might help
Yeah.
in the sale, and then, oh, we're buying this home that has, they've done this work, now. it
That's
might
not,
be
that's not our
possible-
business, Carl.
Huh?
That's not our business.
No, but what
That's the
I'm saying
business of the
is-
property
what I'm
owner.
saying is,
No, I think he's trying to say have them restore it back, which might have been a
If the
reason
I
why
know,
they
buyer
but
wants
purchased.
that's
If
up
the
to the
buyer
buyer
wants-
and the property owner. It's not up to the government.
they
That's
wouldn't be
what
required.
he's
he's
trying,
saying.
that's
Well,
what he's
the-
Oh,
saying.
that's what you're
Yeah,
arguing?
that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
I-
okay,
I-
I
if
wasn't
somebody-
following, I
I was
wasn't
trying to
following
say-
that, I apologize.
no problem, but like I said, I hate to have somebody buy a home and the next thing you know, they have to rip all this
If we're
out.
gonna set a standard,
Oh.
or if we're not gonna allow it, we're gonna have to go village-wide and
Right.
start looking at everything.
Right, right.
I mean, I
Because
think
you can't
it's-
just-
I think, you know, you'd have to get.
Well, here's what I think we need to do. We need to look at the old ordinance, see what's out there, and then update the ordinance. I'm sure there's other communities that are facing this. We're not the only ones that are out there. Adopt something that's reasonable.
Yeah,
And then if there are some caveats, reference, we're not having poles, we're not having basketball hoops, we're not having flagpoles, you know, those things, the boulders, or whatever the board decides to do, then we have them, and if we're gonna allow those things at some point in time, then certain licensing agreements are there. I mean, for someone to have plants on a parkway, they look nice, really. They dress up, it's a nice curb appeal to see. I would hate to see that go bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but I think we need to have some kind of framework.
Right.
So this question could be answered ahead of time, and that's why I think it's being brought here today. It's just that you were the exposed one, because it was so much. So I think you can understand
But-
that.
and I
And
thought
so
we
new,
had
and so
one.
new. It's not
I thought
fully
we had a
developed.
discussion about this.
Well, we
um,
had one last year regarding.
The carriage
people that put
walks and
Carriage
stuff,
walks,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
people who put in sprinkler systems in the parkway that the village is no longer responsible for if
Right.
they get damaged.
So we've got some framework
Right,
for
we're-
building this into it, so.
And like I said, and the whole, noxious weed and nuisance greenery control, that's pretty well laid out too, as well, so. That's why-
Well, like you said, let's look at the whole ordinance.
I'd leave it alone
on
for right now.
Thank you.
And then we'll come up with some stuff, and I'm sure that you've been doing some research as well. If you have any, please send it to Melissa.
Sure.
Of other towns that might have something that would be germane to your issue.
My only one question regarding the resident is, are they going to be fined or anything?
No,
Okay.
just let it alone.
Okay. That's my only
leave it alone.
So,
Okay.
if I may, I think Robert's suggestion is well taken, that this is village property. We should have an ordinance that says what that uniformity is. It should be grass or sod or whatever. I'm not a horticulturist, so, but, I know grass when I see it. But if you're gonna do something other than that, then you need to get permission, you need to get a permit from the village so that we have some control over what's going on there and get these indemnifications and agreements that we're not responsible for the damage from salt, et cetera. But, it is village property, and unless you're gonna put grass in your parkway, you should come to the village and get permission to do that. And we can craft something that provides for that.
Yeah, and I mean, Carl, you were one of the, mentioned the other day that MWRD was giving 18-inch trees out for free. Well, do we really want 18-inch trees planted on our parkway by the residents that might go to MWRD? I mean, I got the information long ago. I could have had 50 18-inch trees. But our policy has been we put either a 2-inch or the people upgrade and pay a little extra and they put a 4-inch in. But I've seen people buy their own trees and put them on village property. That should not be allowed.
No,
They need
no.
to put them on their own property,
Absolutely.
right? Unless,
Oh, right.
unless it falls into our category. But it's getting away from us, I think, is what's happening here. And we need to look at it and be comprehensive and realistic at the same time.
I agree completely. In fact, like this picture here, I mean, this could be a possible site obstruction that,
And then triangle, could be. I don't know. But thank you.
Thank you.
We're in the holding pattern. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, going to move on to the consent agenda. Item 5, we have approval of the record of bills ending 7/8/16 in the amount not to exceed $648,521.38. Approval of minutes of June 28/16 of the board, of the committee, of the whole, and the exec session, which was a handout, I understood. Approval of department reports, community development, police, fire, public works. An ordinance waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of street signs from Traffic Control and Protection Incorporated in the amount of $36,596. Does anybody want anything pulled?
Say, could
Sir.
we just pull item D just for clarification on
Okay.
how we came to that, or
Sure, certainly.
how the village came to the.
Anything else to be pulled? If not, is there a motion, a second, for the approval of A through C?
so moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the first? Carl and Frankie?
Yep.
Roll call on A through C.
Trustee Celestino.
Aye.
Trustee Perry.
Aye.
Trustee Pagano.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item D, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of street signs from Traffic Control and Protection Incorporated in the amount of $36,596. Motion by
So moved.
Second.
Frank
No,
and
no.
Angelo.
Tom.
Oh, Tom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tom.
That's right.
And Angelo. Discussion. Robert, you want to bring us up to speed once again on this, please?
I believe this is the, I apologize, I don't have the material in front of me, but I believe this is the one that we got quotes on, and we didn't go out for bids, but we did get quotes. We got 3 quotes, and this was by far the lowest. While the other 2 manufacturers do make signs, what we needed is the breakaway posts, and these guys were by far lower on the breakaway posts than anyone else. And it was, I don't have it in front of me, but it was quite a difference between number 2 and number 3.
I believe number 2 was about 41,000.
Yeah, we discussed
We
all this
discussed
during the
at
budget,
cow.
Yes.
We had a
And
during
list,
the budget process as
Well,
well.
right.
Just for everybody's information, this is in regards to the replacement of the snow signs and adding the sweeping signs in a 2-section area this year and a 2-section area next year. So we'll have some definitive sweeping times and dates, and also that the upgrade of the snow will be 7 days a week and not excluding Saturday and Sunday, which we have now. So
And
it'll
we
be pretty
did-
much during that
For the police
time
department
parameter.
to enforce the ordinance, we have to have the signs in place before they can write tickets, and
Right.
so
And
and we're going with an upgrade with the sign materials as well.
Right. and
Instead
we-
of painted, there'll be the reflective signs you can see at night.
Yes, and the ones that are conforming to the new rules and regulations, I believe they're blue and white. You had an example of them at last meeting, and they were going to be in 2 different sections, and then the following year, the other 2 sections for monetary purposes.
Robert, these are some of the more common vendors also used amongst municipalities.
Yeah, traffic control and protection, and then the other one, there's probably a dozen that do this, but this particular firm, they do soup to nuts for us, the bolts, the washers, but the difference on price here wasn't just the sign stock, sign material, it was the posts. And oftentimes, that's where a company that will sell you signs kind of comes in and makes their money, as they charge a significant amount for the post. So we got quotes as a package to see the whole cost outside of our own time to install it. And by far, this company provides all the parts and pieces that we need for a lower cost. The request to not bid was merely a time factor. We did get 3 quotes, which we feel from 3 major manufacturers for the Northeast Illinois area. So it's representative like a bid, but to put together the bids and bid out, and it just takes another 30 days.
Okay, any other questions from anybody on this? Okay, please call the roll, Jessica.
Trustee Garrett?
Aye.
Trustee Pambana?
Aye.
Trustee Celestino?
Aye.
Trustee Rita?
Aye.
Trustee Euclid?
Aye.
President Poulet?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you all. Item number 7, managers report. Janet.
Okay, there's a few things I'm going to leave to the department heads, but I wanted to share with everybody a letter that Chief Adams received from the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus dated July 11th. The Dear Chief Adams, congratulations. The Powering Safe Communities proposal submitted by the Village of Westchester Fire Department has been selected for funding. You are awarded $9,640 to complete your project, E-Hydraulic Extrication Tools, Westchester Fire Department. You've proposed to match this grant with $12,100 of additional expenditures and/or in-kind services. ComEd and the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus are pleased to partner with you to make your community safer. And that's just an excerpt of the letter, so I wanted to, I know I have notified the board earlier, but congratulate Jim on obtaining this grant. And just to let the board know that we will, at the next board meeting, have a motion Mike, did you say we should have a motion, or we're good to go?
As long as you've reported it, I don't think we
Okay.
need a motion. It doesn't
So then
require us to sign a contract.
We will
so.
be signing the grant agreement and submitting that to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, and then Jim will be free. It's the, what we all know as the Jaws of Life. We're going to be replacing called a Hearst tool.
The new technology, they're battery operated, so don't have to worry about any hydraulic oil or fluid or cords or anything like that, so it'll be a real nice addition. You know, a lot of departments are starting to transition over to that now that they've figured out the battery technology in these tools. So yeah, I know the guys are looking forward to it, so definitely be a good addition.
Am I correct, that will reduce the chance of injury to our firefighters?
Yeah.
And the other thing I think Greg will be touching on, just want to remind everybody that our block party is this weekend, Friday and Saturday, but Greg will fill you in on the details. That's all I have this evening.
Great, thank you. Michael, anything?
I have a matter that we will need to discuss in executive session. I apologize, but it regards some pending litigation, so that would be under Section 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act. Thank you.
Board members, Frankie.
EDC got a late start on Monday morning because we're short people on economic development, but we're going to try to maneuver around some of the bylaws, so we only have 5 on the board, so we won't have to wait around for a quorum anymore. We talked more about the Pride in 7 campaign. The next event's going to be actually at Joe's Place, which is considered the historic Boulevard District, and it's going to be in my parking lot at Joe's Place in Consettas on August 16th. And that's all I have.
Okay, just make sure that they're aware that, you know, myself and the board put together the makeup of any of the committees that we have, and I did 7 for a reason.
Oh, okay.
To get more people, so it's not in the purview of EDC to decide if it's 5 or 3.
No.
or 2 or
It's
1.
something we're going to present to the board once we get it all hashed out.
Because
but
there may be 2
wasn't aware
people
of that.
I want to put on.
Sure. Well, we've been struggling for
Well,
a long
again,
time.
unfortunately, we lost one, and then we lost another one recently due to changes. But the whole idea was trying to get more people involved from the community and not
Right.
3 or 4 people. The whole idea was to have 7 on all these boards. And we've asked for volunteers, and maybe we'll be out soliciting for volunteers as well. But it comes for the purview of the chair, because I set up the EDC and not the bylaws of the EDC that they want to change it because of they want to change it, just so you're aware of that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but they want to change it because sometimes we don't have a quorum to meet with. And we've been trying relentlessly to try to
I
get
get
more
it.
people to join.
I get it.
Yeah, we just lost actually another one from.
Well, that's what I mean, we lost
From, what was the bank?
from the bank.
Yeah, right. Rob Jankowski was his name, good guy.
Celestine, anything?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Carl, anything?
Just another successful e-recycling event. Had a great bunch of volunteers, made it very workable, and no problems. We had the weather lucked out, and like I said, the only thing people need to remember is when we close the gates at 11:30, that's it. So we always get the stragglers.
We only had 2.
We only had 2 this time, and nobody has left anything there. So that was the other nice thing, going there and seeing that this morning, that nobody had dropped something off beforehand, but that did not happen. So,
But
other than that, all is well.
thank you. Angelo?
Nothing.
Tomas?
Nothing.
Chief?
Good evening. Police Department, with all the events that have been going for the last couple of weeks within the police culture, I just want everybody to know that we've been keeping the lines of communication open. I've been meeting with the officers on a regular basis to kind of reaffirm them and reiterate the fact that they need to be safe out there and watch their backs. And anything can hit home, even though these are bigger towns. But it seems to be open season. There's another shooting today. I don't know if anybody heard on the police in Washington D.C. Seems like there's one every day now since Dallas. So our people are getting constant communication and feedback from me, and I want to do a shout out to a lot of the residents here in town that have reached out to the police department, to support us, the cards that I've gotten in the mail, the baked goods that have come in, the shaking of the hands, the phone calls, the messages. I mean, there's been a lot of support from the residents, and I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for that. And that's it.
Thank you, Chief. Jimmy?
I was going to mention about the grant, but I don't have to do that now. So
Sorry about that.
just getting ready for this weekend, and that's about it.
Any update with the fire candidates? I know Nick isn't here today, and maybe you have some
We're just
words to share where we're at with that. It
we're
seems to be
waiting-
taking an inordinate amount of time.
The first couple candidates have their polygraph scheduled in the next day, 2 or 3 days. What's the date? Yeah, the next 3 days, and apparently that's as soon as they could take them. And if they pass the poly part of it, they'll then potentially be offered their offers of employment, and we'll continue from there. So I want them in the door last year myself. So.
It's again, I don't know what the holdup is, but it's taken way too long. We've been farting around with this since December. And here we are 6, 7 months later, and we don't have the bodies in the game. Christopher, welcome.
Thank you, President Palia. Just to give an update on the finance staffing, we finally had our new accountant, Andrea Hardy, start today, so we're finally staffed fully. And then also today we met with our auditing firm, Sickich, to discuss the April 30th audit. The plan is for them to be out in early August, and we'll move forward with that.
Great, thank you. Gregory.
Yes, the village manager mentioned this weekend is the block party over at the community center, Friday the July 15th from 5 to 10, Saturday July 16th from 3 to 10. Have entertainment, food, as well as kids and children's activities that'll be there from J for Jumping, as we've done in previous years. Other than that, that's all I have. The rest of the stuff you'll hear from me in the cow.
Just a question. I had a
Yes.
conversation with Trustee Stecker prior to the meeting this evening, and he said he had some correspondence. Apparently, he reached out to Homeland Security with Mr. Kaiser, or Officer Kaiser, and that apparently they may have sent a letter that whatever camera they had is ours to do it what we will. Is that something that's factual? Or
Yes,
is there
apparently-
something that we're supposed to do with it now, or what? Are there any plans for it?
It would be several $1,000s to go up and check on it. I've tried to work on it, and I can't make access to it. We do have permission to have it.
I mean, because it's up in the pole?
Yeah.
Who put it up on the pole?
Cook County. Johnson Controls is the company that did it for Cook County. Estimated cost to go up. We're going to probably end up using some of the equipment with the Gladstone camera, being able to transmit the signal from the tower that's already there back over to our current records area where the cameras are located and viewed. But the camera itself being up in the pole, there's no way to access it currently. There's no signal coming from it, so the only way to get up there would be to actually physically go up to the top. I know our ladder truck isn't.
And it may be the technology of that camera is
It's
old.
definitely 5 to 6 years old. So yes,
So we would never put a camera up there, we just have that as a relay position, is that what I'm hearing?
That's
That-
correct, yes.
That the pole, wherever you're planning on putting it at Gladstone, will be at a more reasonable level?
Yes.
But at some point in time, we're gonna have to climb the pole and do something with the
And
technology that's up there?
and figure out what we can do.
So I'm
yeah.
saying, that $2,000 of climbing the pole, we have to go one way or the other, correct? Is that what I'm hearing? And we're gonna have to go up on the pole and look at the, whatever equipment to beam the information to us?
Yes, but we're only going to go a quarter of the way up
Oh, okay, that's what I'm saying.
compared to
So
the,
we're
the
not-
height that the camera is up there.
So that camera's obsolete, it's just gonna.
At this particular time, yes. I've talked to a couple vendors. I'm trying to get better numbers than several $1,000s. It's an unknown number because it's not a standard bucket truck that would go up there. It would be a tower climber. That's who put it up in the first place, the climber versus any utility truck that could do that. I've talked to the vendor that we're currently working with. We're trying to determine if there's any way to access it via, I guess, commands and codes versus going up there. The only way to know for sure, and what I would like to have done if it was this simple, is to be able to hit a reset button to determine that it power cycles. We could then begin using it that way, but getting up there is the biggest challenge.
Well, I guess one of the questions then begs to be asked, is there any requirement of the county to come and retrieve their equipment off our pole?
I would have to look at the documentation that was signed when,
I mean, if it's dead and have no use, whatever, then maybe they should climb the pole and get it down. I mean, I don't know, there's something to
no, I
look at.
can
don't know what's in the
definitely look into
agreement.
see what has been done in that regard. If any other town has requested or demanded such.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Just to clarify something I said the last 2 meetings ago, we're talking about beginning our hydrant flushing. As we reviewed our schedules around town and what we've already committed to doing, because it's at a high flow period in time, we think it's better for us to coordinate with the fire department and do that, postpone that flushing till September. It looks like other towns have experienced a lot more breaks if we do this testing during the summer, where there's a lot more water going through the system. And our advice from our engineers was to wait until after the summer. So we would move that to more September months, try to get it done before it gets too cold.
Sam, in the water meeting, didn't we talk about that we're actually low usage right now?
Right.
So we're probably at September levels.
That could be, but a couple of hot days and then we could be up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we begin that program, what we're trying to avoid is doing a lot of.
I think
repairs.
In our water meeting, we did discuss that we're really low on water usage.
Here's the question. You're gonna have, in September, October, you're gonna have leaves falling down. Now, you're gonna have leaves in the curb. If, we've asked for this flushing for a number of years, and for whatever reason, it wasn't followed through with, for whatever issue or whatever, something else kicked it to the curb. I just don't wanna run into a situation and now we're flushing in October and now we have all these leaves and now we're gonna have that excuse that the leaf machine is out there pushing the leaves and it's such a mess with all the water. You know what kind of craziness it is when the snow falls and you have leaves that we haven't been able to pick up, and a majority we have. So, if we're committed to do it, let's do it. If we're not committed to do it and there's other things that are coming up, we're not. But then this is something else that's been pushed to the curb that we've talked about almost every year. I know Nick has brought it up constantly, and it never gets done, and there always seems to be a hiccup. So if we're gonna do it, let's do it. I know we bought the signs, they look great. But again, I'm real tired of things getting pushed to the curb and not getting done, and just like all the other things we talk about, there's no finality to it. It seems like it goes on forever and ever and ever, and 14 meetings later, we're still talking about the same old stuff. Let's get it done, one way or the other. So, anything else?
No.
Right, Melissa, you're up.
Just touching on what Trustee Perry had mentioned, our next, the EDC's next business district meeting is here at Village Hall next Tuesday at 8 a.m. It's for the municipal district, which is this area. It goes from the train, it's along Roosevelt Road from the train tracks to Manheim, and then along Manheim from Roosevelt Road to 290. So sort of that L-shaped business area. And also last month my department issued 214 permits, completed 259 inspections, and it was about $1.5 million in construction value. That's it.
That's it. Jessica, anything? Anybody have anything else that missed? Okay. A couple things from me. As you could tell, I'm probably not in the greatest of moods today. But that being said, I think a moment of silence for the officers of the Dallas Police Department. Before I came here, the reason that I was kind of late was I was listening to the President of the United States speech before them. And again, I know I've heard some correspondence today from some individuals, but the police department will always have me, as a former police officer, to support them like the residents have, and I'm glad to hear that. We did have a sign that, for whatever reason, today became controversial, although it was coming down anyway because of the block party, that all lives matter, and I believe that's in my heart, that everybody's life in this room is a matter and should matter to all of us, and that we need to support our police department. They're running in when everybody's running out. And they do a difficult job, and sometimes mistakes are made, like in all professions, and I don't think there's anybody consciously that I've ever known as a policeman that generally went out there and said, I want to violate somebody's constitutional rights today, or I want to do something that's going to cause me to have a problem. I believe that in my heart. So those poor officers in Dallas that were protecting the lives and property of the marchers, and the city of Dallas, my hat's off to them. I cried tears for them because, as you all know, I have a whole family of police officers, 2 of which are currently in the city of Chicago and 2 nephews in there as well. So I have 4 guys that every day I worry that they're coming home or not coming home, and what's happening to them. It's the profession of their choice, profession of their father and grandfather, and my brother as well is a police officer, and they have my utmost respect, although I get mad at the broken windows theory when I see stuff that they should see that I see, but they will always know that I have their back, and hopefully that they will always go home safe at night to their families. That is the most important thing that's out there. For those of you that know, Chief Stelter and I and former Chief Carpino have met with the clergy on 2 occasions, one with Chief John and now with Chief Steve, to meet them not only in Westchester but in other communities to start a dialogue of relationships between the community, minority community, whichever they are, anybody that resides in Westchester, to see how we can do things better. And I saw the chief this morning talking to his staff at roll call. I didn't want to interrupt, but I think the chief knows, with all his years of experience, what our officers are up against, what they should expect, and how they're supposed to handle themselves. And for the chief to go in the roll call and be part of the group and have that conversation is laudable on his part as well. This is our town, and as far as I'm concerned, everybody in it matters, period. Period. There's no political statement. There's no philosophical statement around my commentary. It is just that. We're all God's creatures. We were all put on earth for whatever reason we were put here. And we all need to be respected. We all need to respect one another. And all of our lives matter at the end of the day. So, with that, that's the one more thing. I did receive some correspondence, and Jimmy, you may be able to help us out with this, regarding some of the Balmoral apartments with the new ordinance 152115. If you wouldn't mind refreshing our recollection of the ins and outs of that ordinance, and what have you been receiving? Because I'm sure you received some of these letters as well, that there is a financial commitment to get these things done that may be in excess of what people have the ability to pay for. And is there some kind of recommendation, or is there some kind of revisiting? Is there something that the board wishes to do to either make this more palatable or go forward? Jim.
As you recall, when we upped building codes and fire codes, we updated from the 2000 International Fire Code to the 2012 International Fire Code. Every 3 years a new code comes out, and we had fell behind on those codes. Is recognized through the International Fire Code. They're starting to move into multi-unit apartment buildings from incidents that have happened in the last 20 years. And one of those is actually installing fire alarm systems inside, or automatic, fire alarm systems inside buildings of 3 or more residential units. More than 3, I'm sorry, the code's written, as you know, really backwards, of more than 3. So basically 4 units or more, which down Balmoral, down parts of Mannheim, and along Cermak, that's pretty much our largest population of the 4-unit buildings. It doesn't make a difference whether they're rented or owned units. Something we did, instead of mandating fire alarms throughout the entire building, including all the living spaces inside the building, to make it more palatable or make it more affordable, was to actually keep it in the common areas, which is basically their front and rear stairwells, and any common areas in the basement where all tenants use. And basically with this, it includes the fire alarm pull stations. So as you're running out the building, you pull the fire alarm. It's a 24-hour monitored system by SMG, or Midwest Central is the actual dispatch company that dispatches those alarms. So basically what it comes down to, if the smoke detector or somebody has a problem in their apartment, they don't need to pick up a phone. As they're exiting the building, they can actually pull the fire alarm and notify the whole building instantly, as well as the fire department in that same pull of the alarm, getting us going and alerting the entire building, no matter what time of the day, to get people starting to evacuate and notifying us, basically taking care of lots of extra seconds, which could mean the difference between life or death. Ultimately, that's why we put it in place, was to save those lives. Secondary to that, because of the early notification that we receive, we can get there quicker, allowing, obviously, to save lives, less property damage. Along with that, less property damage also comes that the apartments are inhabitable quicker after a fire. Many times after a fire, if anybody's experienced a fire, there's many times 6 months to a year people are out of their houses or apartments as a result of that, due to insurance and contractors coming in and cleaning up properly and all of that. So basically what that does is, if we can get there and keep it to just a stovetop fire, chances are they're going back in their apartment that night with some smoke smell, but then the cleanup company can work while they still live there. So as an owner, you're back in your place. You know, there's minimal time that you're left out of your place after damage from a fire. If you are a building owner, your tenants don't have to seek a different place to stay while they're displaced. And a lot of times, if they're displaced for a long enough period of time, they'll find other places to live, so then they'll have an empty apartment, as well as during that whole time they're not paying rent to not live there. So again, as a building owner, it protects them and protects their building, basically. So bottom line, they were installed to save lives, but those are secondary to that. And then also with the insurance companies, many insurance companies will give a discount on the insurance as a result of this.
Right, so in a unit A, they have a smoke detector in every bedroom and in every probably living room, kitchen, wherever they have, in addition to a carbon monoxide detector. That is not hooked up to the system in the hallway. Is that correct? Correct. If you mentioned something had to be pulled. If there was a fire in the hallway, would someone have to physically pull that alarm, or would the detector that's in the hallway
The
send
detector in the
signal?
hallway would set off the alarm.
Okay, so nobody has to pull anything. It would go off.
Right, if there's a fire in the hallway, if there's a fire in an apartment, in a bedroom or kitchen, and the smoke hadn't reached the hallway yet, as those people are exiting, they can pull the fire alarm, and that will notify everybody quicker.
I know we passed this last year. This was a 2012 upgrade, correct?
Yes.
This wasn't the latest upgrade of the fire code, is that correct?
No, it's even though there's the 2015 fire code out there, it's really difficult to stay on top of it the year it comes out.
Right. So this year we're at 2012 we've adopted? Is that the one that we've done?
Yes, that's where we're at.
So, and the one before that we had was which number, do you recall?
2000. It was 12 years old.
2000. So
Yes.
we had an old
Yes.
old code in the game. And we gave a certain amount of time, was it a year or so?
Till April 27th of 2017, and we've sent out a few letters, certified mail to everybody. At this point, we
Let's say, how
have-
many were affected? Buildings, about?
I want to say 44 or so.
Okay, so say 50. Out of those.
As
have
of
you-
right now,
Do you have a
we-
compliance number right now?
Right now, we probably have about 10 approved in, and probably, I'm not sure of the number, but I know there's a number of plans that are, have been
Been submitted
approved,
to
and they're
do-
in the process of being worked on. And I invite, I will send a letter to this gentleman, because he didn't leave a phone number, I don't believe. But I'll write a letter to him explaining the benefits of it, and I've done that every time it's come up, or return phone calls. And I also tell them I'd be more than happy to meet with them at their place or at the firehouse. And a lot of times people are upset, and then I kind of explain to them the benefits and the realities of it. And financial-wise, nobody wants to spend the extra money, but they do understand the reasoning behind the code.
And this is similar to what we did back in the day to any of the businesses in town, am I not?
Yes, and the businesses
correct
are
on that?
affected, all the businesses are affected by it too, because through this code update, we realized there were a number of businesses that didn't have to be sprinkler, but were not even fire alarmed at this point, so they're actually falling under this ordinance too. And again, same process as.
But I
going-
think the majority of the businesses were in the old Keltron board.
Yeah.
They had to be direct connect fire.
Yeah.
And then police were phone in or direct connect
Sure,
for
sure.
burglar and that kind of stuff. Am I not correct, Greg? Okay, so we're picking all those up. Question to the board. Does the board have any
Jimmy, when was the first?
revision of this?
When was the first notification sent out? Approximately, a year, 2 years?
Well, we passed
Probably
it,
last year.
we passed it, I believe, on April, well, yeah, I want to say it was the last meeting in April in 2015. So within the first week or two, I think we sent out
It's well
the
over a
first
year
letter.
that we've.
Yeah, and as we get closer,
And you
because people are,
subsequently
I've
sent
actually
out-
gotten complaints that too many letters have gone out
Okay,
that were
that's what I was
harassing
saying. So
them,
you-
and in the letter, I do try to say,
You
this
sent-
is just a friendly
You
reminder,
sent
not a
secondary,
harassment.
third,
Yes.
backup
Yeah.
documentation, okay.
Yeah,
I think
so-
the question that came out back then was we didn't want to pass this on to people in the future, as we did with other buildings in town. It fell through the cracks, and then 2 and 3 years went by where there should have been some type of work product at least done, and then nothing was done, and then we ended up
Well,
back in this scenario once again, so.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, we passed it. We've had residents, a number of residents had to have complied already. It's hard, you can't just change
The rules.
the rules midstream and say, well, you know what, we're gonna change them now, but all the people that complied.
Yeah, well, that's the conversation.
And I've had people come and complain about, the lowest, from what I've heard, from people when I've talked to them, has been, $6,000 to $8,000 a building, but then people have said it's $20,000 a building, and we can't tell them who to use, but, we do encourage them to continue to get, quotes, because I know there are cheaper quotes out there, so.
Okay, and the contractors that are working in town are probably on our website.
Yeah,
The
they are.
names
And-
and numbers, and they could avail themselves and certainly get 3 or 4
Yes, and if they
quotes
ask
of
for a
everything.
list of contractors, we give them a whole list of contractors, so.
Carl, you're.
Are you having issues with the buildings that are each individual owned? Is that where you're having issues with? And there's not like an association for the building?
No, not necessarily. Every building seems to have an association,
Oh, they
even if
do?
they're
Okay.
individually owned. I was actually surprised at how many, the amounts of buildings that are owned by an association. You know what I mean? They cover multiple buildings, which I was kind of surprised that we had that. I thought I was going to be dealing with a lot of individuals, building owners or associations,
Okay.
but it's a lot of the associations. There's 8 or 10 buildings they belong to.
Jimmy,
So.
quick question on the equipment, just for edification. You noticed, you mentioned all the common areas, the hallways and stuff. Are there any audio-visual devices inside the units themselves? So when it goes off, you're
Not
I mean, I
inside.
know you can hear it,
Yeah.
I know they're designed to here within so many feet.
No,
even if they're
there's
in the
not, and
corridor.
that, again, that was kind of one of the ways we kind of compromised to try to keep the prices down, because to then start installing in all the individual units, then you're really, you're talking about a lot more money. So this was just, this definitely makes the building safer again, because it's just instant notification. Basically, if there is a problem in the hallway, it's
But I mean, if
instant.
you're pulling that pull station, how do the other residents?
Oh, the horns go off in the hallways. and
They're
in the
on
basement.
the hallways.
Oh, yeah, and they're plenty loud.
Yeah.
So, and again, I do explain that to them, the way it is now, well, I get we're all smoke detectored and everything and everywhere, and I says, that's great. If you have a problem in a lower unit on the north side, and you're in the upper unit on the south side, at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a good possibility you're not gonna hear that there's a problem. Those people are gonna panic and run out, which is the normal reaction of anybody. Get out of the building, call the fire department, and then we roll up, and then we have to figure out, how many people we still have left in that building and things like that, which delays rescues, delays getting water on the fire, and that's why if it's a problem in a unit, they pull the pull station, everybody's notified instantly as well as us. We're on our way, probably while people are still shaking the sleep out of their eyes, so.
Okay, anybody have an issue with what's being proposed and what we're doing? Any changes to be made? Anybody? No. Okay, great, thank you, Jim. Okay, looks like we have an exec later. Is there a motion, a second to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Celeste and Tom. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition, say no. Board meeting stands adjourned.